Warning, warning.
Today's episode contains spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie or TV show that we are talking about, we highly recommend that you watch it first, then listen to this episode. Thank you.
Greetings, Spice fans. Silk City Hot Sauce is now sponsoring the Dorkening Podcast Network. Our craft sauces are made in Vermont in small, high-quality batches using locally sourced, farm-grown ingredients. Silk City Hot Sauce comes in a variety of heat strengths and killer flavors like Jezebel, Erotic Fever, Mango Madness, and Good Morning Jonestown. And don't forget our newest creation, Hot Syrup. Make no mistake, Spice fans, this is the queen of sweet heat. There's new and unique flavors coming out all the time. Best of all, right now, listeners of the Dorkening Podcast Network can go to silkcityhotsauce.com and use coupon code DORK. Not only will you get 20% off your order, we'll also throw in a free bottle of hot sauce. That's silkcityhotsauce.com. Coupon code DORK.
Hi, this is Rigor, and you're listening to The East Meets the West with my co-host, Patsy the Angry Nerd. This is the show in which we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. Today we're going to cover the Venom film, Legend of the Fox, from 1980, and the 1966 Lee Van Cleef western, The Big Gundown. So, how's it going, Pat?
It's going pretty well. I'm excited to be back doing this. It had been a while, and I was thinking I've been working in movies, and you know what? I want to make a western. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Nice. I would love to do that with you.
I did see one earlier this year that I highly recommend if anyone, and it is getting a sequel. If anyone hasn't seen it, The Ballad of Sharkosaurus, I highly recommend seeing that. It was a lot of fun. I know it seems ridiculous, but they built a 14-foot animatronic shark that walks around. And to me, for a low-budget short, that is the height of getting the most out of your budget.
I would imagine.
So, I'm 100% on board. Everybody should see The Ballad of Sharkosaurus. It's a quality Western film. It really is. I mean, it's no The Last Gundown.
Right.
But a Big Gundown, sorry. I'm so used to these being like the last something.
Right. That's awesome. Have you seen The Burrowers with Clancy Brown?
I have not.
Oh, you're going to have to check that one out. That's a more modern Western. It's from a couple years ago. Well, when I say couple, it's probably between 2010 and 2020. I forget what year. But yeah, it's kind of like, without being so over the top, it's kind of like Tremors meets a Western.
I mean, I would consider Tremors a Western.
Yeah. But this is like the Old West, and there's these things under the ground, and then you just got to see it. The Burrowers. In fact, we should probably cover that.
We should. I do love me some Clancy Brown. So.
Oh yeah. I messaged him earlier last year about being on the show, and they were like, "Oh well, Clancy Brown's all booked up for the year for doing what do you call it, press." And so yeah.
I mean, he's a big star now. He's Marvel. He's DC. Like, he's a big star. Like, he can write his own ticket. So.
And I always thought he was just the Kurgan. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first introduction to him. I mean, I know this isn't our topic today, and we're getting way off track.
Yeah, we are.
Shawshank Redemption.
That's right.
Yeah, and that one line about the colossal prick even managed to sound magnanimous, like, and fun fact, he's fucking Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, I knew that. Oh, who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
Brown, like, again, this is a dude that, like, he can do any, like, oh, I'm Mr. Krabs in a kids show. I'm also the giant god Surtur, and I destroyed all of Asgard in Thor 4 or 3 in Ragnarok. Like, unbelievable.
Oh my God, I know, it's so funny. Like for me, oh well, it was funny because when I saw him, he was the Kurgan in Highlander when that came out, and then a couple years later, there was a movie called Shoot to Kill with Tom. No, I want to say Tom Bergeron. It was Tom Berenger, and when I saw Clancy Brown's name in the credits, I was like, "Oh, he's the villain." And sure enough, he was the villain in the movie. And the whole thing, spoiler alert, the whole thing was like you didn't know who the villain was.
Well, certain guys you always know are going to be the villain. Like, anytime there was like a guest star on Columbo, it's like, oh, I wonder if he's the bad guy. It's like,
Oh my God! All right, Pat. Here's a trivia question: who is the only villain on the Columbo show that Columbo could never actually bag or catch?
See, I don't know, but I know my mom would. My mom loves Columbo, but if I were to guess,
If you want a hint, let me know.
yeah, give me a hint. I might get it.
He played the prisoner on the show, The Prisoner.
Oh, yeah, now I know. I can picture him, but not. He was on The Simpsons when they parodied that same movie.
Yes, he was the king in Braveheart.
I can't think of his name.
Patrick McGowan.
Oh, see, I should know that because we have.
You should know that. Yes, Patrick McGowan was on Columbo twice, and both times I don't think Columbo was able to bag him. But you know what? Confirm with your mother, just so we know that.
I'm actually writing that down. Columbo question.
Yeah, Patrick McGowan is just amazing.
We share a well, she uses my Amazon account, so like sometimes I'm like, oh, do you want to continue watching Columbo? Like,
so, she's like, of course.
She's like, I would never stop. Like, if I didn't have to sleep, like, it would just be Columbo nonstop. Which is why it threw me off when I saw him in something other than Columbo.
What, like The Princess Bride?
Yeah, threw me off. I'm like, what the hell is he doing there? I was also like 7, so.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, he's been in tons of stuff. He was in Murder by Death, which I saw in the theater, and oh my God, I can't think. There's like so many. I mean, he was. Oh yeah, what's the one? Him and Alan Arkin were in The In-Laws. That's a great movie where him and Alan Arkin are literally in-laws and they fucking hate each other, and it's hilarious.
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
like, I always thought he had a good delivery. Just one more thing.
Just one more thing. Yeah. I heard a whole podcast about him the other day, and they said it was weird because he was very difficult to deal with on set. And what ended up happening was the longer that Columbo went on, the more power he wanted in control of the show. And it wasn't like a bad thing. Like, he wanted to make the show good, but his ideas weren't all that good. So that's sort of what ended Columbo at the end, because he had all these great ideas, and then they kept going and going, and then after a while, the ideas were not so good. And even though he thought they were great, it turned out they weren't.
Season 47, Columbo solves space crimes. But it's not the Martian, it's the head of NASA. That's who's doing it.
Now, Nathan Fillion, he's a good guy. He's going to be in more space cop shows.
You know what I would have loved to see a crossover?
What?
Like, almost like a CSI type thing? Columbo and Quincy.
Oh,
that would have been a great combo.
Man, that would have been really. I love Quincy. I love Jack Klugman, anyways, and I always loved Quincy because of that. Oh,
yeah,
man.
Jack Klugman is in one of the best Twilight Zone episodes ever. Him and Jonathan Winters when they're playing pool.
That's right.
Yep.
That's a great one. Yep. Did you ever see the one? All right, I know we're way off tangent here, but who cares?
We will talk about westerns and kung fu films in a minute.
We shall.
It's been like a month since we've recorded.
No kidding. We haven't talked in a long time. I think the last time we talked was over Facebook, and we talked about air fryers.
No, but I mean, like the last time we actually had a conversation was a month ago at Rhode Island Comic Con when we met for the first time.
That's right, folks. If you haven't seen it, look at the Then Is Now Facebook pages because we have a video out there, and Pat and I are on there. But now I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, I forgot.
I don't know, Klugman or something.
Oh, Jack Klugman, the Twilight Zone. Oh yes, one of my favorite Twilight Zones is the one where there's all the. I forget what it's called now. It's like 5 characters in search of a something or other, and there's these 5 people that wake up. One's like an army general, one's a ballerina, one's a clown, and then there's like 3 others, and they all wake. One's a hobo, I think, and they all wake up in this place, and they can't figure out where the hell they are, and the wall is like a circle. It's like they keep following the wall, and it's this circle all the way around. They can't fucking figure out where the hell they are, and spoiler alert. So if you people don't want to hear this, fast forward 30 or 40 seconds. It turns out they're dolls.
Yeah, they're all toys.
Yes, in a one of those drop the toy in the basket, for charity kind of thing. And so they're all dolls, but they wake up and they're like, "Where the hell are we?" That's one of my favorite Twilight Zones. I mean, I have a handful, but oh my god,
we have to do a Twilight Zone episode.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to do a whole series on Twilight Zone. All right, so let's get into what we're doing here. We are the East Meets the West, and we're going to talk about Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. And first up is a movie called Legend of the Fox. It's also known as Legend of a Fox from 1980.
I think I like the because it's like Legend of a Fox. That could be anybody.
Right.
But it was like Legend of the Fox. It's like, all right, like if you were to say Legend of a Fonz, like, I mean, it's just, it was the quickest and like most similar thing I could think of. Like if you said Legend of the Fonz, know exactly who you're talking about. That's
exactly.
Arthur Fonzarelli. Know exactly who you're talking about. A Fonz? Oh yeah, my name is Jeff Fonzton. My legend's not all that fun, like, but it's like if you said the Fonz, like, all right, I'm in for a good time. I'm gonna see Henry Winkler, and like we're gonna see some Happy Days stuff. It's like no, this is Ted Fonzworth, who's
Ted Fonzworth.
He was an accountant for some multinational corporation, and he exposed all their tax fraud, and that's how he's a legend. But nobody knows who he is, but he'd be played in the movie by Jonah Hill.
By Jonah Hill. Oh God.
I don't know. I'm just making all of this shit up. But like, if you didn't know, you'd be going into it like, all right, Fonz, I know who that is. What?
Well,
why the hell am I seeing Jonah Hill? Like, well, it's different when you say or the. Like if you were to say Legend of Madonna or Legend of the Madonna, like if you said the Madonna, like, all right, I'm going to see a religious movie.
Right.
That's what this is. But if you just said Madonna, it's like, all right, this could be a porn. Hey, I didn't put out a book called Sex, okay? I'm just saying one of the two of us did. It wasn't me, it was her. So before anybody gets mad at me.
And if you have irritating emails, just send them to Bill Johnson at
Ted Fonzworth at jonahhill.com.
jonahhill.com.
自称飞狐的，你是谁？我是胡飞。姚大侠眼中所染是毒手药丸粉末，请前辈慈悲赐以解药。 要怎么用法，还请指点。
你要求我，我就去。我师叔必然会来谋夺我师父留下的药王神篇。
Oh, Jesus. All right, we're way off. All right, so tell us about Legend of the Fly.
All right, well, we're going to play the trailer here. And then I'm going to try to do the funzo, I was going to say. The synopsis. I don't know. I had troubles with the synopsis, and then I watched the movie, and I don't think it's the same. So I'm just going to read the synopsis, folks, and then we're going to go with it. And then we're going to talk about it, okay? So, this film tells the story of a young man named Hu Fei as he escapes the rain with his uncle. Now, whilst they're undercover and Fei is looking after his sick uncle, a group of men walk in that Fei's uncle recognizes. He then tells Fei the story of how his father was killed. We learn of a challenge match between Fei's father, Hu Yidao, and the man with the nickname Invincible, whose real name is Miao Renfeng. After hearing some rumors, Renfeng challenges Yidao to a match, and after exchanging terms and formalities, they begin. But as things get late, they decide to get some rest and resume in the morning. The next day, they step out and fight again until night, when they go to bed with the intention of resuming the next day. Now, this continues on for a few days. Finally, the two become friends, and Renfeng announces that Yidao couldn't have done the things he was rumored to have done due to his honest and moral conduct. But then Renfeng and Yidao spar a little more when Yidao is sliced by Renfeng's blade and starts to die. Confused, as the cut was not normally fatal, they conclude that he was poisoned. Renfeng knows nothing and is incredibly regretful. Yidao then commits suicide, and his wife does the same thing. Afterwards, Renfeng keeps his end of the bargain and decides to raise Fei, still a baby, as his own son. But some of the men, plotting against everyone, try to kill Fei before his uncle swoops in and saves him. We flash back to the future, and we see Hu Fei as a young adult. He learns the last movements of Hu's sword kung fu and decides to take revenge for his parents. But things get complicated, and this becomes much harder than originally intended. We then see a lot of sword fights and deceptions as each side tries to outpoison the other. So that was a horrible, horrible summary of the film. That's like a summary of the first, not even third, the first quarter of that film. Wouldn't you say, Pat?
Well, I mean, the poison thing. I mean, I have a worse one. It tells the story of a man named Hu Fei as he escapes the rain with his uncle. Whilst they're undercover and Fei is looking after his sick uncle, a group of men walk in that Fei's uncle recognizes. He then tells Fei the story of how his father was killed, so Hu Fei decides to seek revenge on those people. That was it. That's the entire synopsis. I mean, it's not wrong.
Right.
But like there's a happy medium between the two that we just listened to. I would say this plot was far more complicated than it needed to be.
Right.
Like the whole poison thing, like I get why it was introduced, but like it didn't need to be introduced. I would have preferred like a Zatoichi thing where he's like, I mean, because he was already fighting blind. I mean, I will get there, but like,
oh, Philip Kwok, yeah,
but like, I don't know. It was, yeah. I mean, based on the synopsis that we just both read, that's Legend of A Fox, because that's, a more. It doesn't have to be as concise as the one I read, but it doesn't have to be as like in depth as the one that you read.
Right.
Because there's a lot of intricacies that like really take away from the plot. Like I don't watch the Star Wars prequels for all the political action. Like it's like, oh, this is great. It's almost like watching C-SPAN, but with Wookiees, as opposed to like what I watch Star Wars for, which is lightsaber fights and, speeder chases and things like that. Like I watch Shaw Brothers Kung Fu films for the amazing choreographed fight scenes. Not that, well, all these people betrayed each other 18 years ago tonight on a night much like this. And like, there's that guy who wants to kill this guy, who wants to kill this guy, who wants to kill that guy. But they all want to kill me because, oh, that guy cut my arm off and sliced half my face off. But that guy is, oh my God. Like, I'm taking notes. It's like, oh, and it's also the other thing, because he did it twice and it drives me nuts. It's a good thing he told Hu Fei, his dad's name twice, right? Because otherwise, like, oh, he killed your father, Dad Fei, and it's like, oh my God, he knows what his dad's name is. Like, are you telling us? And then you tell me again 5 minutes later in case you forgot, like. And he's like, oh, these are your arch enemies. It's like, how many arch enemies does this guy have?
Right.
It would seem one is too many. Like, like Batman has he has a rogues gallery, but only one arch enemy. Like, how many arch enemies can one guy have? And he's only 18.
Right.
18 years old, and he's got like 6 arch enemies.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of backstabbing and this one's going after that one, but like this guy didn't know it, but he was an unwilling pawn. So it's like, oh, I'm sorry I did this to you. I guess I'll just jam my fingers into my eyes. I don't think that they're going to be able to help him with a flower. And you know how it was easy to tell who the bad guys were? Anybody with a mustache or a goatee. That's how you know.
Unless you were Philip Kwok.
Yeah, but you didn't know that at the beginning.
Right.
When they introduced him, like, ooh, that's a bad guy. Look at his mustache. Ooh, that's a bad guy. He's got a mustache and a goatee. He's even worse.
It's funny because there was a lot of evil laughter and mustache twirling in this movie.
Yes, there was a lot of like that over the top stuff, and It was like, come on, dudes, come on.
Oh my God. And it was funny because, this whole movie, there were so many, like, really, like, I'm going to go on record right now before we even get to the first and last impressions, which we didn't even do. But the last impression, I loved this movie, but I was thoroughly confused throughout. I had to go back. In fact, about a half an hour or an hour ago, I rewatched the opening, and it actually made more sense to me. After having seen the film and then rewatching the beginning third, I would say, of the film, of the third quarter, it made a lot more sense. It was kind of like Bill and Ted. Oh, that conversation made more sense that time. Yeah.
Yeah. If you rewatch it, like my last note is so many subplots.
Yeah.
But it's like, if they didn't happen, it's like, oh, I have to bury my friend who sacrificed herself for me yesterday, but here are her ashes. Like, when the hell did you cremate her?
I know.
Like, did you do it on the way? Like, was you just, like, grab her corpse? What are you doing? Oh, I'm just heading down to the all-night cremation. Yeah, like, it's like the all-night laundromat next door to the crematorium. And it's like, wait, what are we... Oh, I got this nice vase. It used to have flowers in it, but use those flowers to heal this guy's blindness.
And thankfully, there's a cover to it.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a lid on here, but it's like everybody. Yeah, like you said, everyone's out poisoning it. So many clouds. And I will say this though, having worked on films that rely a lot on fog and fog wrangling, the fact that they were able to get those shots and like the two different colored smokes kind of clashing with each other, and making it seem like it was this was brilliantly done. Like, all joking aside, like, for everything else that's going on in these movies that are like really weird to point out, when you see like the conflicting, contrasting smokes kind of like colliding,
right,
and like they're two different colors, for that to have taken place in 1980, like that's really, really impressive.
Oh yeah, and it's funny, one of my notes was, I forget the guy, Siu Ho, or I'm sorry, Hu Fei, and he's got the little thing, and she says, just blow that into their house. And he blows like a whole fog machine worth of smoke out of this tiny little thing.
And then she's like, okay, that's enough. As if there was more left.
Right.
The worst thing would have been is if, like, instead of blowing into you, he's just like, he uncorks it and just goes, oh!
He chokes before he can blow.
As I was taking notes, so we had the two guys, with the mustaches and the goatees come in. And then a third guy comes in. I'm like, how many evil mustache guys are there? And everyone knows who everyone else is. Right. Everybody knows everybody.
Right. The thing about the third guy, now, apparently he was a hunchback, but when they first showed him, I just assumed he had a backpack on. And then they showed him again later on, and I'm like, oh, he's got a hunch. I thought he had a backpack on.
Yeah, and then I wrote, this seems more like a vortex of plot convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, that like that whole segment. So, folks, there's this whole segment. By the way, if you get a chance, you're going to have to, I think Celestial Pictures has this on DVD now, so you're going to have to download this video, because we're going to spoil the fuck out of this movie, because there's a point where you see this guy, and he's like, and that's the other thing I want to ask you, Pat. So everyone's calling each other brother and sister, and then the sister's like, oh, brother and I are married now. So I don't think the translation worked.
No, I think it did, because if you watch a lot of these Shaw Brothers films, everybody's always referring to each other as brother and sister.
But they're not, like, literally blood brother and sister.
No. Like, but if they're from the same clan, or, like, they consider each other family, like, they're not literally, like, even during the duel scenes, they're referring to each other as brother because they have so much respect for each other.
Okay. So they're not blood related. They're just
no. It's not like a Lannister thing.
Okay.
But this was I do think some of the translations needed some work. Like when the dude stepped in and started shooting ball bearings out of his slingshot there.
Yeah, Chang Shang, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, if you interfere again, I will have to ask you to leave.
Right.
It's like, hey, stop trying to kill the guy that I'm fighting and, dishonorably, or you're going to have to go home. Like, I'm sure there was a much better line, but we just lost a little bit in the translation.
Yeah, and Chang Shang was a dick throughout the whole movie. I mean, he ended up being the sort of the villain of the piece, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, even Tien is a big old jerk.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was my note.
Yeah, it was even worse than that. He was a dick. There was one moment, and this is unrelated to anything, but when my son was young, he goes, hey, Dad, what's the difference between a dick and a jerk? And I said, well, a jerk is a jerk on purpose, but a dick is a jerk who doesn't know he's a jerk.
Right. He thinks he's in the right.
Yeah, and he was a dick here.
Oh, yeah, he's a total dick. But I think he knew that he was a dick, so he was like, super dick.
Super dick. I was going to say, what do you call that? So, all right, back up a second here, Pat. So, didn't Tian, Chang Shang, and Philip Kwok's character, what's his name, Rialto Renfeng?
Renfeng, yeah.
Yeah. They believed that Lu Fang killed their father, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was, I kept saying meow. The golden-faced Buddha. It's like, did you see the guy with the yellow face? It's like, I didn't see anybody with a yellow face. Like,
right, yeah.
Like that, again, another thing. It's like, what? But yeah, he, I don't know what he was doing.
But he was basically like, no, I didn't kill your father, you dumbags.
And he sent that whole letter, and then it got he's like, tell him he's gonna need. I was like, that's fucking aggressive. Like, this dude's definitely trying to start it. Tell him he needs 3 coffins, 2 big ones and a little one.
Oh yeah.
It's like, all right, that's messed up. Because first of all, you don't need a little one. You could cram the baby in down by the legs or something.
Yeah.
And really, if you just get it a little deeper, you could just shove everybody into the same coffin. Like, be economical.
Yeah. And that was Chang Shang who said that.
Yeah. The one guy who came closest to killing the baby was the uncle there, because He's like, I'll save the baby, and dove into the ocean underwater with him.
Oh my God, that was one of those oh no moments because like they chopped his arm off. I was like, oh no, and then he dived into the ocean with the baby, and I was like, oh no.
First of all, sharks.
Well, depends on which part of the ocean you're in, but yeah.
Well, sharks in general, or any other predatory fish. Second of all, you have to hold the baby above the water and also propel yourself.
Right.
He did not think that through, but I get it.
But he got away.
He was diving into trying to get away. He was trying to not be dead. But yeah, like I would have tried to do something different. Like, oh, I know, I just lost my arm and I'm in shock. Like, that's something you need to take care of. That's not something like a pleasant swim will take care of this.
Well, the salt ocean will take care of it.
Oh yeah. Oh, salt water is good for your cuts and bruises. Yeah. What about the fact that you left your arm on the beach? Like
you're bleeding out.
You know what the most unrealistic part of that entire sequence was?
What?
When he cracked the guy with the vase and it didn't break.
Right. I was going to mention that.
The only thing I can think of is that they used an actual baby and they didn't want shards of pottery raining down on a newborn.
Okay, that would make sense. But then, what's his name? Yu Tai-ping is like, his eyes are open, but yet he goes on to be like this, like, leader of whatever the cult that was, you know?
Yeah, it's a bunch of weird stuff. So,
a lot of
I mean, again,
stuff.
I don't speak Mandarin. I wish I did.
Yeah, because I wonder if the translation would have been much different.
I was kind of hoping for both dubbed and subbed, so that way, like, we could get that difference.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
unfortunately, no. But that's fine. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we've already been like ripping on them for, but at the same time, like, there are some great fight scenes.
Oh yeah. The thing about it is, this movie was never released in the U.S., so there is no English dub. It wasn't until Celestial Pictures actually put it out on DVD a couple of years ago. That's how we were able to get this copy to watch. But I did mention Yu Tai-ping. We always call him the pointy nose guy, so we know who he is, compared to the other guys. This is the first time he's had a major part in the movie. And so we're going to have to start remembering his name now, Yu Tai-ping, moving forward, because I thought he was really good in this. Even though, he starts off as the doctor, but then he kind of works his way up to being sort of this warlord, would you say?
That's pretty good. That's a.
I mean, what else was he? He was kind of in charge, so.
I mean, he was definitely pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Yeah, but even in like the present time, he had the red outfit on, and he was sort of in charge of those dudes that waltz into those people's house at the beginning. And that was the thing. I'm glad I rewatched the whole opening, because the opening was confusing me, because then we get to a point where Siu Ho, Hu Fei, the flying fox, he encounters Ren Feng at a later point, and the daughter is still like, 8 or 9 or whatever. And I'm like, wait, wouldn't she be grown up by now? And I got confused about the opening, because the opening there was a flashback, and then it was like wasn't a flashback, and it was, I don't know, it was very confusing. But then when I rewatched it, I realized, okay, so she actually is still that age, because the uncle was telling him about his life, and so it all worked out. But it was very confusing in the beginning.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. Like I had no idea. I was like, I don't know who's a good guy, who's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's dressed similar. Everybody's got the same hairstyle. Everybody's got the same, same hairstyle, same facial hairstyle. And it's like the only guy I can recognize is like, okay, Hu Fei, the Flying Fox, also the Batman. Flying Fox is Batman.
There you
Um,
go. The baby Venom.
That's the guy I need to root for because he doesn't have, Ming the Merciless facial hair.
Right. Now, I don't know if you remember, but he was in Masked Avengers and Two Champions of Shaolin. And
I do not recall that.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. But he did act with Jet Li in Tai Chi Master. Tai Chi Master was the film, and Fist of Legend. He's in a bunch of movies that we've covered, actually, including the Two Champions of Shaolin, the Rebel Intruders, and as I mentioned, Masked Avengers, which they actually hadn't made at this point. We kind of did that one out of order in terms of the Venom films. But he is going to be in one of our next films, 10 Tigers of Kwang Tung. So we're going to have to get used to seeing this guy. He's sort of considered the baby Venom in this.
I get it. I can dig it.
Yeah. And now, Lu Feng, if folks, if you haven't had a chance to check out our Facebook East Meets the West page, please do, because I posted an interview with Lu Feng. And in this, he said that he was talking about Hu Yi Dao, his character from Legend of the Fox, and he said he was more human than the other characters I've played. Or, I'm sorry, he was more humane than the other characters I've played. I love the heroic relationship between my character and the righteous Miao Ren Feng, as played by my colleague Kuo Choi, a.k.a. Philip Kwong. It was a different sort of masculine role than I normally played. Had it not been for Director Chang's mastery, the interpretation might not have been as good. So I thought that was interesting, considering one of our recent shows, people talked about how Chang Che slept through most of his directing.
Yeah, I mean that's come up a few times, but I mean, whatever. He's a busy guy. He's tired.
Right. He's putting out what, like 20 films a year?
I can tell you from personal experience working on films. I haven't directed anything, but I've just been like a production assistant or a driver. You get exhausted, especially if you're like say the last film I worked on where I was a driver. Call time is 7 a.m. You got to be there for 6 because you have to bring people from crew parking up to set.
Yeah.
So you have to be there at 6. And if it runs late, like say it runs till 8:30, that's when filming ends. Well, you have to wait till everybody's gone from set. Everybody has to break down everything. Then you have to bring everybody back to the set. So you have to get the camera people have to put all their camera away. The grip and electric people have to put all their lights and everything away. Everything has to get wrapped up. If it's raining or snowing or there's any type of like adverse weather conditions, maybe it rained earlier in the day and now it's mud everywhere. You have to make sure that you get all your stuff put away. So, 7 to 7 turns into 6 to 10, and then you've got to go home.
Right.
Like you have to drive there. So if there was a 7 o'clock call time, I'd have to be up at 4 a.m. to leave my house for 5 so I could get there for 6. And that's if it's 45 minutes away. If it's further than that, and then so you're working, counting the drive time and everything, 14, 15 hours a day. I mean, as a director, generally it's a little easier because someone's picking you up in the morning, someone's driving you too, but you have to make sure everybody is where they're supposed to be, they're supposed to be doing. Like, give the guy a nap now and then. That's what you have a director of photography for.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. One of the
coordinate the fight. There's a bug in my eyes. I'm trying to suffocate him.
Good heavens. But one other thing that Lu Feng said in that interview was he was talking about Chiang Shang, who as we mentioned earlier, he plays the villain in this movie, and some of the reviews I've read said that he looks uncomfortable in this role, as he did playing the inspector in Masked Avengers. But Lu Feng said that I'm sorry, I can't say the name right. Tian Guai-nong, who was Chiang Shang's character in The Legend of the Fox. It was a very good role for him. He was known for playing the non-serious parts, but he played a villain beautifully, particularly because his jovial personality is the total opposite to the character. And I have to say, I thought he was great in this movie as the villain. You wouldn't expect him to be the villain, and it was kind of unnerving because he's always like the wacky, goofy character. But he
Yeah.
was great in this.
Yeah, he's usually like a like, this fun-loving goofball, but
Yeah,
and he was serious, and I like the fact that he was a good bad guy. Like, that's the thing I've said about, like comedic actors for many, many years. Comedic actors tend to excel in dark, dramatic roles. I mean, perfect example, Robin Williams. If you've ever seen 1 Hour Photo, or his appearances on Law and Order SVU, or say even Awakenings. Like,
well, he was serious in that. He wasn't a silly doctor like in
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams, I was going to say, yeah.
He was dark. He was serious. I think his serious roles were better sometimes than his comedic role. I mean, same goes for somebody like, say, Jim Carrey, like his darker, like the Number 23, or Richard Pryor in some of his dramatic roles. Like, because I think folks like that, comedy comes from a place of pain.
Yeah.
So they're able to excel. I mean, Robin got 2 Oscars, so.
Right. And we've talked about Chang. He died young. He died painfully because he was a painful, not painful, but he felt like a painful person, and it's too bad because he was so beloved, just like all these guys, Robin Williams and everyone that you've mentioned, they're so beloved, yet because they're comedians, they have this pain behind them.
Yeah, and again, that's I think that's where a lot of their comedic, frenetic energy comes from. I mean, how many of these folks have we seen overdose? Chris Farley, Belushi, all these guys, or we hear about them years later, and it's like, I have, unless you're somebody like, say, Carlin or Lewis Black, who you put all your anger and your rage, or Dennis Leary, into your act, and like that's part of who you are, you're able to expel that energy out into the world. I think you're going to have, serious issues. So
yeah. Oh man, I love Dennis Leary.
He's from the same hometown as me.
Oh, that's right.
Worcester. Yep, him and John Benjamin and Alicia Witt and several others.
That's right. I forgot about that. And it's funny because when the kung fu boom was on the wane, the Venoms and Chang-Chi began to try to experiment with different types of films, and this is definitely a different movie than we've seen, with the exception of, and I hate to bring it up, but Shaolin Hellgate. With the exception of that movie, this movie is a real departure because in this movie you saw a lot more swordplay between the characters than we have before. And as we kind of mentioned before, you saw a role reversal. Lu Feng was the good guy and Chang Sheng was the bad guy. So I thought that's what made this movie really entertaining, was because after having seen all the ones that we talked about, this sort of changed things up. Would you agree?
Yeah. I will say, though, that the one of the first things I thought of watching the very respectful duel, first of all, the very aggressive tea drinking, like that's like the most aggressively I've ever seen someone drink tea. The other thing was they're so evenly matched, and their matches kept going into the night, and then they wouldn't sleep, and then they'd fight again the next day and would go into the night. It reminded me of this I want to say 97, 98. There was a crossover between Marvel and DC, and the two universes combined, and a lot of these like heavy hitters were fighting each other.
Was that the Amalgam universe?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I remember that.
And one of the fights, it was to incapacitation. It wasn't to death or anything. Like Aquaman fought Namor the Submariner, and in order to incapacitate him, he just had like a killer whale jump out of the ocean and land on him.
Yeah.
Like he incapacitated him. Batman and Captain America fought, and they fought for hours and hours and hours and hours. And
But
they were
wasn't it
both,
like Batman and Wolverine combined?
no, that's what happened afterwards because there
Okay.
was no clear winner. So like whoever lost, like it was there was a Green Lantern versus Silver Surfer, Wolverine and Lobo, Thor versus Wonder Woman. No,
Right.
Wonder Woman, Thor versus Shazam, Wonder Woman versus Storm,
Yeah.
and Wonder Woman picks up Mjolnir and gets like the power of Thor. She's like, oh, with this extra power, I would absolutely win. But that wouldn't be a good victory, so I'm not going to use his hammer. Storm's like, all right, and just electrocutes the shit out of her. Catwoman fought Elektra. What was the other one? There's a couple other, like somehow Elektra beat Catwoman. It's like, no. Superboy fought Spider-Man, and Robin fought Jubilee, but like they ended up hooking up, and like it was what Hulk fought Superman, of course. And,
of course, yeah.
Superman won by like punching him and having a mountain fall on him, and that like incapacitated him for a moment. But the Batman Captain America fight was like the most evenly matched, and it just kept going and going, and neither one of them wanted to win. So like they were fighting in a sewer, and all of a sudden there was just like this rush of water. So Batman threw a batarang, and Cap threw his shield, and the batarang ended up like hitting Cap, but like Batman ducked the shield, and like that's how he technically won. And it was just like, yeah. And then when they merged the universes together, it was like, Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and like Batman and Wolverine combined, and so did Joker and Sabretooth.
Yeah,
and
the Punisher was in there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't remember all the different like combinations they did, but I do remember him being Dark Claw. Like that was
right.
But he wasn't Bruce Wayne.
Right.
It was like Logan Wayne. It was like a different guy. And like, oh no, it was like Bruce and Steve Rogers were like the same guy. It was crazy.
It was crazy. I remember that. Oh my god, that was so long ago. Oh man. But I get your point. These characters are kind of playing out of type. And it was almost like, Captain America versus Wolverine, or, Batman versus Captain America kind of thing with these characters.
Yeah, because it was so, not just the fact that it was so even, but it was because they were so honorable to each other.
Yes.
They were very like
cordial,
respectful, and like, even the end fight where it's like, well, I'll use your sword if you use my technique. That way, whoever wins, it's still a stalemate. And like, if I win, I'll take care of your kid, and if you win, like, I'll take care of this for you. And
and that was an issue I had with the translation, because at least from the one I saw, it said both swords were covered in poison, but then they were shocked when it was only one. Yeah, so I was wondering if there was something amiss there with the translation, like they kind of fucked it up or something. Because
I think it's they were trying to set it up so that who would kill
Lu Fang.
Chang.
Yeah.
Ren Fang. Sorry, Meow.
Right.
And then they could go and kill him. Like, oh, we're avenging our master. You cheating bastard! You killed him just the way you killed his parents, or whatever. And,
right.
When they switched swords, it was like, oh. I will say though, one of the things I liked was the fact that it was a Chinese broadsword versus a Tai Chi sword, and we've talked about this a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you get to see the flexibility of the Tai Chi sword,
right?
Which I really liked.
Yeah,
and that's.
There's a question I had too about the whole female blade and male blade, because it was only there in the first third, and then we never heard about it again.
Yeah, I was looking. I was like, who's got the female? The what?
Right.
Yeah, and like, what what do they mean by female blade and male blade? Does like one slide into the other?
Right.
Like
in Hawkeye?
Yeah, like I don't get it. Like what's Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, there was a lot of things in this movie that didn't make sense, and then, you know, it was cool that we saw the servant grab Lu Fang's kid, and as we said, he tries to get him to safety, loses his arm, but ends up in the ocean. That was one of those oh fuck moments. But what was funny though, I have to say, at the very, very beginning of the movie, the subtitle says Shang's Mansion, a rainy day, and it's clearly raining. It's like, duh.
It's almost like they took like the exact wording from the script,
right?
Like the description from the script. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, like someone was explaining it and it somehow made it into the movie.
Right.
All right. Exterior, rainy day.
Yeah. We didn't need that. Okay. Shang's Mansion helped because for the translation, we didn't know who it was. And then, of course, Chiang Shang kicks like 6 guys' asses, which was great. But then, you know, Pointy Nose gang, Philip Kwok comes in, and Pointy Nose and his gang are afraid of him. And he's called the Golden Buddha, which I wanted to mention because they showed the flashback, and his backpack says, invincible in the martial world. And did I not want that backpack when I was in high school? What the fuck? Where was that when I was in high school?
Well, what I want to know is, like, was it a backpack or was it just, like, a thing he slung over his shoulder and just carried around? Like, yeah, whatever, I'm invincible, fuck you. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, I didn't mean it to be boastful. It's like, it's on a gold fucking satin backpack that you sling over your back and you carry around with you everywhere you go. Oh, I didn't mean to be boastful.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I didn't mean to be boastful, yet you challenged me with your aggressive tea drinking.
Your aggressive tea drinking. And that's the thing, too. All right, so, our whole conversation so far has been just sort of maintained to the opening sequence. And I wonder if that's what the whole movie's about, because everyone's talking about that. That's all the synopses you can find are about this first third. But, you know, the whole thing is about the male and female blades and all that stuff. It's like,
I'll tell you, I think I know. I think, like, the synopsis that I read, that's like 3 sentences long.
Yeah.
I think it's because the plot gets so goddamn convoluted as you go along. It's like, oh, we knew that he'd get mad about, like, us talking shit about his daughter, so he'd rip up the paper and then would definitely get poison in his eyes. And it's like,
if he ripped it up.
Like, what if he just got mad and crumbled it up and threw it into a fire?
Right.
Then what? Then that whole subplot about the king of poison. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. It was like, oh, here's this manual. I'm like, what happened to the guy that got, like, turned super feral with the poison? Like,
right.
Twice! 2 different guys!
Right.
It's like, if I jingle my keys, how nuts you get. What are we doing here? Like, this, like, even for one of these wacky kung fu movies, this went off the rails. Like, we saw a guy like, your sword is too light. I need to compensate. So he just snapped the top of his sword off.
Right.
As you do. Like, what?
Well, that happened to him twice.
No, but he just took the top and, like, his sword, lots of swords broke during this whole
Right.
whole
thing. Yeah.
But, like, I'm talking when he's like, he gives him the sword and he's like, oh, that sword's too light. So he just snaps the top of his sword off.
Yeah.
Like, he's breaking off a piece of a candy cane to give to a kid. Like, how is that okay? Like, why? What? Like, oh, my sword's a little too heavy. Let me just snap a piece off. Oh, hold on a second. Like,
yeah.
If you are that powerful, how is anyone standing up to you?
All right, so this brings up a question. In the final fight, when Philip Kwok goes up against Chiang Shang, they both have their swords, but they both also have another sword, and the other swords collapsed into nothingness. Do you remember that? Like the swords just went ching, 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 and fell into pieces, but then they still had their main swords.
Yeah, I think what they did was they were trying to they were like the effect of was supposed to be them like crashing together and like breaking.
Oh, okay.
But it was just done in a really weird way.
Yeah, because it was like, oh, the swords fell. Oh, but they still have swords. I was like, wait, what? And I didn't get a chance to rewind and see what the hell was going on. And that was another thing about this movie that really irritated me was the subtitles would go by so fast. I don't know if you had this issue, but I had to rewind quite a few times to see what the hell they were talking about because the subtitles would be on the screen for a second, and I'm a pretty fast reader, and I couldn't get it all, and it would go away.
I didn't either, but I was also watching at 1.5 speed. I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. There was some shenanigans going on. Like I had to rewind it a couple times. Like I watched the last couple minutes as I was eating a bagel with Ash outside the lab, and I rewound it. So I'm like because we've talked about this on the show before, how, sometimes you'll see movies making fun of how ridiculous and over the top some of the martial arts action is in these and some of the things that they do.
Yeah.
When he cuts dude in half at the end.
Yes.
Get revenge on your father. And the guy jumps in the air and he cuts him in half. I rewound it and you have to watch this. You have to see this. She's like, is that what you're talking about tonight? I was like, yep. She's like, what? I'm like, don't, that's one of that's not even top 5 most ridiculous things that happened in this movie.
I yelled, oh my God! I saw him get flayed in half.
I couldn't believe it, but I loved the cut that they did to it because it was definitely. You know what it reminded me of?
What?
You ever seen the Saturday Night Live skit where it's hosted by William Shatner and they're like, oh, the lost ending to It's a Wonderful Life, and John Lovitz is playing Mr. Potter, and they dump him out of the wheelchair and he's not even a cripple, and they throw him over the desk, and then they pull the dummy out and start throwing it around.
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of. I'm like, yep. He went from guy jumping in the air to cut this dummy in half, and the two halves went spreading far apart from each other. Can we just talk about how if he doesn't get poison in his eyes, we don't have this 45-minute subplot of the movie's an hour and a half if he doesn't get poison in his eyes.
Right, yeah.
Meanwhile, and this isn't today's movies where it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, but 15 minutes of that is credits. No, this is 2 hours and 9 minutes long, and it's 2 hours and 9 minutes. The end of the movie,
right?
Is the end.
The end. Yeah.
There's not another 10 minutes of credits that follows that. So if he doesn't get the poison in his eyes, then he doesn't have to go and help the girl. And, then they have the big duel, and then he gets poisoned. And she's like, oh, well, there is one way to do this. I have to die. I'll save your life by giving mine. And
right.
So he saves him. She dies. He cremates her on his way to his parents' grave, which, again, when and where, we have no specific passage of time.
Right.
Everybody just keeps showing up at the same place anyways, because apparently there's only 3 places anybody can go in China, which is a huge fucking country. But for whatever reason, there's only 3 places that these people can go. So he cremates her, has this very nice vase, and goes and his wife that she left the other guy, that whole thing was weird. Left the other guy to go be with the big jerk guy, and she's like, oh yeah, let me tell you the secret, far away from everyone. And they take 3 steps.
Right. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, let me tell you, away from everyone else. And they're still 10 feet away from everyone else. They just move slightly to the left. It's like Star Wars when Han's like, we'll lose him. I know a few maneuvers. And he just kind of drifts over to the left a little bit. It's like, That's a sweet maneuver there, Han. Great. And she's like, yeah, bury this, but like only dig like a couple of like halfway down and you'll find a sword.
Behind the gravestone.
Why is there a sword there?
Right.
Why would you be buried? Like, and he's digging a hole with his broken sword. Like,
Yeah.
what? Fuck.
Well, she did say, I saw when they buried the grave, and blah, blah, blah. And so she said, I saw them bury the sword behind the gravestone.
Which, why was she there?
I
Like,
don't know.
What did she need to be there for?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the whole weird thing, too. And then she was like she had cheated on Philip Kwok with Chang Sheng and then became Chang Sheng's wife, but yet Philip Kwok had her daughter. And that was a whole point, too, with the young guy, Liu, not Liu, but the young main guy was like, you couldn't even console your own daughter when she was crying, mommy, mommy, at the beginning of the film, you know?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, I am in no way, shape, or form going to, like, try to pretend like I'm some sort of expert on Chinese customs, but, like, roving gangs of people can just like, oh, we're out in the rain. We're going to go into your house and warm ourselves by the fire.
Right.
And don't worry, we'll just build our own fire in your courtyard. It's like, wait, what? There's like 4 different groups of people. And it's like, oh, watch out. There's some suspicious looking characters. Which ones? They all have evil mustaches. Like, they're all suspicious. Except that guy. But that guy's just like hiding in the shadows. He's not suspicious at all. It's like, wait, what? That guy's more suspicious than anyone. The other guy's like, we should rob these people. It's like, to thank them for their hospitality, let's rob everyone. It's like, it's kind of a dick move. Like,
yeah.
Look at him. He doesn't have any money.
Right.
Look at his shoes.
So this movie is very different than what we've seen. And I just want to end our thoughts on this movie with this one review I read online where it says, weapons are relegated to basic swords. Although he doesn't mention the dude that had the saw blade swords. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was almost like or the guys with like the maracas. Like, I don't know what but like
they weren't very effective though.
No, they look like it's almost like a balloon on a stick.
Right.
That I know that's an oversimplification, but it's like how effective. Like I think they're like hammers.
Okay, all right.
They're almost like they're hammers, but it's like they definitely weren't weighted.
Right, so they looked like wicked light.
Yeah, so it's almost like, oh, I'm hitting you with this like plastic pumpkin on the end of a stick. Like that's what the prop looked like. I'm sure like the actual, and I'm sure they're like, you know, like the outer edges are bladed or sharp or something. But it's like, man, like what? Everybody had swords except for like these 3 guys. And again, we got to see new weapons because we've seen those like balloon sticks before.
Right.
The hammer things. But the weird looking, it's almost like if you were to weaponize like a foam hand.
With the finger.
Yeah, so like around here we have, you know, because we have the Bruins. I'm out in Boston, so we have the Bruins, and you can get like the foam bear claw.
Okay, yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that.
Okay, all right.
You know, I'm sure there's other, like, you know, like the Florida Panthers or the Carolina Panthers or, you know, some of the other like mascots that have like claws or something, and I'm sure minor league teams as well, you know, they might have something similar, but these were, for all intent and purposes, like scary kitty claws.
Well, I'm sure the Texas skill saws have those, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, and don't forget the crazy pointy nail, like the little nail cones. They almost look, you know, when you were a kid and you do put bugles on the end of your fingers.
Right.
Full of poison. There's those. That was new. And it's like, oh, sorry, I got something in my, poison. It's like, oh, I got something in my eye. Let me scratch it. Oh, now I'm dead.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, oops.
Well, that was the thing I wanted to mention, too, is that this was, with the exception of Shaolin Hellgate, because we keep kind of pushing that off to the side, but this movie, this was the first time we actually saw magic used in a film. And of course, it was just that one subplot in the middle of the film, and then maybe when the girl used it at one point. But we really haven't seen magic in these movies so far, right?
I wouldn't even consider this to be magic. Like, it's science.
But the amount of smoke coming out of that little pipe and the power that the smoke had.
That was just ridiculous special effects. Like, I wouldn't call that magic. I would say that's over the top special effects. Because if you were to try to film like a tiny bit of smoke, like the smoke would have to be of like a ridiculous color, and we did have some weird colored smoke.
Oh yeah.
It'd have to be such a different color from the background to even show up, and the lighting would have to be just right. Like there's a lot that goes into it that, you know, I wouldn't call it magic. I would just be like, all right, that's kind of ridiculous. You know, like when a guy does a 25-foot high backflip onto a like narrow roof, but that's obviously him jumping down being played in reverse.
Well,
you know,
yeah.
like those types of things. That's what that is.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, like I wouldn't consider it magic. It's definitely a lot of like, because everything was science. Like, all right, you know, so we have this poison and this is the antidote and here's the manual. And it's like, oh, I've got 6 manuals. You'll never know which one is which. It's like, we'll just take all of them. You're dead. Like,
right.
This isn't difficult.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. You know what? That actually makes total sense. So let me finish this review. It says weapons are relegated to basic swords, and the carnage isn't as prevalent as usual. Even the final battle is lackluster, although we do get to see a dude chopped in half. That was Chiang Shang, spoiler alert. Lu Feng only appears in the first 15 minutes or so. Chiang Shang basically remains on the fringes of the action, sneering at everyone, and Ko Choi himself provides more of a supporting mentor-type role to Chien Sao Sao. So those hoping for the usual Venom's camaraderie will be severely disappointed. But I disagree with that review. I felt that, as I mentioned earlier, and you and I have talked about, I loved seeing all the Venoms, except we didn't see Lo Mang and Sun Qian. We didn't see those guys, but I liked seeing these guys just in quasi-different roles. That being Lu Feng and Chiang Shang. They were, you know, opposite good guy, bad guy. I mean, Philip Kwok was Philip Kwok. He was he could kick ass even if he was blind.
It doesn't matter. He's the fucking best.
Yeah. So I have to disagree with that review. I thought it was great seeing them.
I will say that, you know, where I do agree with them, it's not the usual like, hey, we're buddies and we're fighting side by side, you know, and like there's that happy-go-lucky, like I'm super good at everything and like we're gonna do like crazy shit, and the first part of the movie is us showing off all of our amazing acrobatic skills because we're so fucking talented and we're so in sync and in tune with each other. Like, that was missing from this movie.
Well, it almost seemed at this point they didn't need to do. They didn't need to do that. They've been doing that for the last few movies.
Well, that it wouldn't have fit with the tone of this film.
That's what I'm saying, is that they didn't need to do that for this film.
Yeah, so, you know, while it wasn't there, it didn't need to be, because this had like a very darker, like, when was the last time you saw, like, you know, a guy get poisoned and his wife go, take care of my kid, I'm going to kill myself right now.
Oh my God.
And orphan my baby. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
that's what I said.
That was way darker. So if you had guys going, "Ooh, boy, that's a wacky little thing there that just happened. Oh, let's run to the nearest restaurant and eat as much food as possible." It's like, that's some weird shit.
Yeah.
Like, that would be out of place. This was, like, there wasn't comedy. There wasn't, you know, like, the closest it came was when she's like, hey, help me water my plants with all that manure, and, you know, Hu Fei's like, ooh, it's gross. Oh, it's manure.
You know,
like, that was as close as it got.
That's actually a great point that I hadn't considered. That that's the only comedy in this movie. There's not a lot of funny moments.
There's no slapstick to it. There's
Right.
no goofiness. There's a lot of respect and
honor.
Yeah, it's a very honorable film, and not that the other ones aren't, but like this one definitely has a lot of that built into it, as opposed to like, oh, we're friends and we're gonna do wacky things and like throw dumplings at each other and
right. So, Pat, final thoughts on this movie?
I enjoyed it. I think I would have enjoyed it more if the whole poison thing hadn't happened. Like, again, that was like 45 minutes of extra runtime that like just took away from the movie. And it's just like, oh, there's more evil bad guys. Like, I think all that was there for was to just kind of throw a few things at the end and make it seem like, hey, look it's, we have the two guys that need to fight each other will fight each other. And then this guy will still show off how good he is by fighting two people that have lost their mind and are just killing machines because some guy jingles his keys. Like,
right.
Most of the stuff was kind of wrapped up, but like in true style, like it ends very abruptly.
Oh yeah, I expected that. When the end came, I was like, oh yeah, the end. And of course, that's what happened. I did cheer when Philip Kwok jumped into the final fight. I was
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I was waiting for it too, and I was hoping for it. And then when he came in, I was like, yes. It's like I have to say I really loved this movie, even though I found it confusing at times and had to rewatch the opening. I thought it was a good change of pace for the actors. It was nice to see them in different kinds of roles, like the whole, like we talked about, the good guy bad guy role. I felt like I was engaged through the whole film. Again, I was confused quite a bit, but I loved it. And if people can get their hands on this DVD, I believe it's on eBay. I've seen it on eBay, and I think that's where I got it from. And I highly recommend this movie.
Yeah, I dug it. Especially if you're a completionist and want to watch all the Venom films.
Yeah.
And maybe you get tired of seeing the goofy slapstick stuff. Throw this in.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want something so off the wall like Shell and Hellgate, which we won't mention again.
Yeah, you're the one who keeps bringing it up.
I knew you were going to say that, but yeah. So, all right. So, folks, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss The Big Gundown from 1966, starring Lee Van Cleef.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett. I'm the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast that examines films from across the decades. On The Bloody Pit, we have several ongoing series of shows within the show focused on specific things in genre cinema that I and my co-hosts find fascinating. There's a long-running series focused on Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti's films from the 1960s all the way up through 1990. There's an on-again, off-again series focused on 1970s science fiction films. There's an in-depth look at the Western movies that William Castle made before he struck out on his own and became the horror auteur that we know and love. A look at the classic Coffin Joe films from Brazil. And our long-term project to look at every Universal horror film made in the 1940s. That's a long project, people. It's going to take us a long time. Sprinkled in amongst those are various other episodes focused on other stranger areas of cinema, like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and even some obscure British crime films from time to time. So join me and my rotating crew of co-hosts as we examine the stranger side of cinema through an exploitation lens. Except when we don't? Yeah, you never really know exactly what to expect on The Bloody Pit. So join me for The Bloody Pit.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Here are your hosts, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Bryce, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton. Only on Monster Kid Radio.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Shark Bites Podcast. It's the greatest show in history. From the Dorkening Network, hosted by a nerd who's named Patsy. From movie reviews to tips on surviving the coronavirus, Shark Bites has it all. Follow us on Facebook and suggest topics at sharkbitespod@gmail.com. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Out this whole area of outlaws and entirely at your own volition. Why, in Texas, you're more popular than Davy Crockett.
She's been raped and stabbed to death.
Do you know who it was?
A Mexican, young varmint called Cuchillo Sanchez.
What's the sense of us sending out a 30-man posse when we got one man who can do it all by himself?
I'll hunt you down and kill you like the rotten beast you are.
But what about you? They told you I was guilty, and right away you start running after me. You're the beast. Because you didn't even ask if it was true or not. I do know a law. The one that says most of the world's two parts, the masters and the Pompeians. In my country, there was such a law. And no one ever know who wrote it, but we lived under it. Then one day we listened to Juarez. And he said we should change it. Everybody should be nice and people should stop hating each other and let the pagans go free. But nothing really changed.
All right, so here is the plot synopsis for 1966. Although, depending on where you look at it, I've also seen 67, but IMDb says 66. 1966, La Resa de Conti, or The Big Gundown. Possessing a reputation for bringing criminals to justice, ready-to-retire bounty hunter Jonathan Corbett, played by the incomparable Lee Van Cleef, is summoned to a party by a Texas railroad tycoon, I almost called it raccoon, by the name of Broxton, played by Walter Barnes, whose daughter is getting married. to a tool bag. Broxton plants the seed that Corbett should consider a Senate run, but not before doing one last bounty hunt. Broxton offers Corbett his political backing in exchange for tracking down a 12-year-old girl's accused rapist and murderer. So this movie got dark real fast. Who goes by the name of Cuchillo, played by Tomas Milian, a Mexican who is fleeing back to his native land. Cuchillo, which means knife in Spanish, is the rascal's weapon of choice. They refer to him as a rascal. He is a suspected rapist and murderer of a 12-year-old. What a rascal. Corbett expects this to be easy, even offering to do it as a wedding gift. Corbett sets out in pursuit of Cuchillo, who is not as dumb as he acts and who is rather crafty and vexes Corbett at every turn. Corbett pursues Cuchillo into Mexico, where he is arrested when a fight starts in a brothel. As you do. Broxton pulls strings to free Corbett from jail and intercepts him, hiring a gang of mercenaries to find Cuchillo. Corbett learns that Cuchillo is innocent and, in fact, the witness that Broxton's alcoholic son-in-law, Chet Miller, Angel de Pozo, was the rapist. Corbett misleads the mercenaries to confront Cuchillo with Chet himself. In the final showdown, Corbett provides a knife to Cuchillo to kill Chet, then kills Broxton himself. The two ride together from the scene before parting ways. Now, I just want to throw out some of the people that are in this, including Nieves Navarro as the widow, Fernando Sancho as Captain Segura. I was waiting for him to show up as soon as I saw that he was in it. I was like, that's amazing. That's awesome. And Nieves did not look as good in this as she has in other films.
No, she was still pretty hot, though. I was watching this with my wife the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's the hot chick.
Oh, no, she looked good, but not as good as the Ringo films? Where she was the bad guy?
Yeah, she was much better looking in those.
Yeah. Big fan of those, the way she looked in those Ringo films.
Oh, yeah.
But, she was, I will say, she very much owned her sexuality in this. Like, I was kind of taken aback by how confident she was, although we'll get to it. There are some pretty weird scene shifts between these different parts of the film.
Yeah.
But I think you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I watched this the other day, and Lee Van Cleef, it's like, oh, he's getting ready to retire. He's looked the same for 40 years.
Right.
The guy doesn't change his look. Like, he sits out in the sun, his skin gets cooked, yet he's somehow always pale.
Right.
No, he always looks the same. Even in Escape from New York, he looks the same.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't have a hat.
Right.
But he looks the same, he acts the same. Doesn't matter if he's a good guy, a bad guy, anti-hero, he always looks and acts and sounds the same.
Yes, absolutely. And this
Lee Van fucking Cleef. That's all that matters.
Lee Van fucking Cleef. We gotta remember that.
It made 1.441 billion Italian lira.
Which is how much in American dollars, do you know?
Off the top of my head, no, but let's see. 1.441 billion.
1.44 billion.
Billion, not million. Italian lira to U.S. dollars. So right now,
I'm gonna take a guess. 57 million American dollars.
All right, let's see. Let's open up currency converter. 1.441. God damn it. It's giving me an ad. Have you tried our currency transfer? No, I don't want to do that. It's not letting me do it exactly. I have to type 1,441,000,000. Pain in the ass this is. $84,000.
Oh wow.
So I mean that
back then.
Well, no, this is right now.
Yeah, but I mean, comparatively.
Well, back
speaking.
then,
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been worth the same amount. Like the Italian lira
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
It's the
right,
euro.
because they're doing the euros. Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't even exist. So just throwing it out there. So 84,000. All right, that's if it's 84,000 in 1966 money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's respectable.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because so the director Sergio Salima, he started off as a film critic. Then he wrote a bunch of books about film history. He became a screenwriter, and then he wrote a bunch of peplum films at first. Sword and sandal movies, and he became an assistant director, and worked his way up to director. He did after this. He directed a few poliziotteschi films, which are these violent crime films in the 70s, like Violent City with Charles Bronson, and Revolver, which I just saw recently, which is really good. So we covered some of those films, like Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man. We covered that over on Then Is Now. And he did a bunch of TV series towards the end of his career. He wrote more films than he directed. He also dabbled in Euro spy films, like a couple of the Agent 3S3 films and Requiem for a Secret Agent. And he one of the peplum films he did was called Goliath Against the Giants, which is really good, and Triumph of the 10 Gladiators. So I have to say I liked his directing style in this movie, and I'm gonna have to check out some of the other films that he's done because I really enjoyed this movie.
I mean, he certainly knew how to pick his leading man. If he's going from Lee Van Cleef to Charles Bronson, like Jesus,
yeah,
like. I mean, is there much of a difference between those guys?
No, not much.
Like, oh, we're done with young Ryan Gosling. We're gonna move on to young Chris Evans. Like, oh, so the same guy, like, or to use it. Sorry, Seth Rogen, you're not right for this part. We're gonna bring in Jonah Hill.
There we go, another Jonah Hill reference.
Well, I figured I gotta tie it together at the end there.
Well, Salima wrote this along with a guy named Franco Salinas and Fernando Morandi. But the third guy that kind of coordinated on this movie was Sergio Donati, who also wrote Mission Stardust, which is I believe a spy thriller or Euro spy film. And the other Western he did, actually did a couple of Westerns, Duck You Sucker, which I think we will cover, and Once Upon a Time in the West, which we will definitely cover here on the show, and the Rucker Hauer film called Beyond Justice. Yeah. So he also did Man on Fire with Scott Glenn and Joe Pesci, and he also wrote Raw Deal. So, yeah, with Schwarzenegger. Yeah. Yeah. So these guys, they're not to be reckoned with. They've done a lot of cool stuff.
Well, you've also left out probably the most prominent name, even more so than Lee Van Cleef. Music by Ennio Morricone.
Oh, well, I hadn't gotten to that, but yeah, Ennio Morricone. Oh, man.
I mean,
what a great soundtrack, huh?
I mean, this guy, again, and I know we've touched on this before, but it is a fucking crime that it took him until the year before or the 2 years before his death to get an Oscar for composing.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
How is it that he has done so many, like, even the synth work that he did on The Thing, which you're like, oh, that's John Carpenter. Nope, it's Morricone. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like, how many movies, iconic scores, like, I would put Morricone up against anybody. Mark Silvestri, James Newton Howard, John Williams.
Yeah.
I would put Morricone against any one of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyone.
Oh, yeah. And that theme song was running through my head for like 2 weeks since I watched the film.
I mean, he's just so good. Like, I love Ennio Morricone, and I love the fact that he got his he got his Oscar.
Yeah, that was so good. Oh my God. And Lee Van Cleef, of course, always awesome. He was great here, and I love the fact that he was the good guy in this film.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't sure what he was going to do, but you're like, all right, I can dig it.
Yeah,
I can dig.
So it was funny too watching this. I didn't know that Thomas Milian was in a lot of stuff. I mean, he was in Django Kill, If You Live, Shoot. He was in The Ugly Ones, Destruction Force, which is another Poliziotteschi film. He was in several episodes of Miami Vice, The Equalizer, he was in the movie JFK, Traffic with Michael Douglas, and his last film, this is kind of funny, his last film was called Fugly with John Leguizamo. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That's a movie that exists.
Yeah. I never heard of it, but he's been in a ton of stuff. He was an American born in Cuba. He trained at the Actor Studio. He did a few plays on Broadway. He did a ton of spaghetti westerns with Sergio Corbucci and a bunch of Poliziotteschi, as we mentioned. And some of those were directed by Umberto Lenzi, which you may or may not know is a horror movie director. So, Thomas Milian was in a lot of stuff.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
We know that Cuchillo Sanchez is, a name that we heard. It's like, oh, the knife Sanchez, or Sanchez the knife.
Right.
I don't recall. Is this something maybe they just did for the posters or the credits or whatever? When was he called anything other than Corbett or Jonathan Corbett? Just as a quick introduction, I don't recall him being referred to as Colorado at any point.
I don't recall that either. So, well, wait a minute now. You're confusing me because you said the knife, Cucci.
They call Cuchillo. They called
Cuchillo.
him Sanchez the knife at the beginning.
Right, and that's the bad guy. But Corbucci or what's his name? Lee Van Cleef was Corbett.
Corbett. Yes.
So what's your question?
When did they call him Colorado Corbett? Like when at any point
Corbett.
did they call him Colorado Corbett?
I didn't see that in this movie.
But that's how he's credited, which is weird.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I have that in my notes.
That's what I'm asking. Like, why, was it just for the, did I miss it? Like, it's entirely possible.
That I don't know. I have in my cast from Wikipedia, Lee Van Cleef as Jonathan Colorado, quote unquote, Corbett. Of course, he's always the awesome Lee Van Cleef. That's what I wrote. So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to say that's probably something of the times. If there were reviews of the film, maybe the reviewers got information that the regular films didn't, and they said, "Oh, he's Jonathan Colorado Corbett,"
Yeah, maybe it's just to make him sound cooler in the credits.
Well, and then you've got Manuel Cuchillo Sanchez. So I'm going to have to say that's what that was. It was the press material that called them.
I don't remember him being called Manuel either.
Right.
I remember them calling him Cuchillo, and I remember calling him Cuchillo Sanchez the knife.
Right.
That's what Cuchillo means.
And Sanchez the knife and Colorado Corbett. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that was like press material, because beyond that, simply watching the films, no, you don't get that out of those films.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, don't you think?
It is really weird. That's interesting, huh? Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that's what that was. I found some what do you call them? Movie ads for this film, and they don't call him that in those movie ads, so that's interesting. But
yeah, even the trailers don't say anything.
No.
Yeah, kind of weird. Do they refer to him as a rascal?
No, not at all. In fact, I don't think I have rascal in my notes, so I didn't see that anywhere.
Yeah, it's in it was in the Wikipedia plot summary. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, what a rascal. Like,
that's funny.
Cuchillo means knife in Spanish, which is the rascal's weapon of choice. It's like, rascal.
All right, so here's a question: Do you remember Walter Barnes, who played Broxton, as the dude in Escape to Witch Mountain?
No.
He's the one that takes the kids to the mountain. In the original 70s movie, not the one with The Rock.
Yeah, I knew which one you meant.
Yeah. He was in High Plains Drifter, Every Which Way But Loose, Bronco Billy, so I think Clint Eastwood liked him. He was on an episode of Mission Impossible. He was also in the movie Cahill, U.S. Marshal with John Wayne. He was in Pete's Dragon. He's like the main, the old dude in Pete's Dragon.
Oh, okay. That I know.
Yeah.
I've only seen Witch Mountain like once.
Okay. And he's in one of my favorite Animals Gone Wild movie from the 70s. It's called Day of the Animals. Have you seen this movie, Pat?
I've heard of it.
Dude.
But I have not seen it.
I have a digital copy, and I will send it to you. It's fucking unbelievable. And Leslie Nielsen's in it.
Absolutely bonkers.
It's bonkers. And Leslie Nielsen's in it. He is crazy and scary in this movie. He is not the dude from Airplane. I mean, this is like pre-Airplane. So, all right. I'm going to hook you up with this movie because he's awesome in this movie.
I look forward to seeing it.
I think Ashes will like it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
But Neves Navarro played the widow, which I was kind of confused, but I guess she's a widow, so she had a ranch and these guys, and then the husband dies, and she's, the queen bee, and she gets to bang whichever one she wants on whatever day, right? Am I wrong?
She owns her sexuality. Like, she wants to get laid, so she gets laid. Like, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, that's what she wants. That's what she wants to do. Like, she wants to, and she shows her power. She goes in, she bangs Cuchillo, and then has her dudes like absolutely whip the shit out of him.
Right. And then she wants to bang Lee Van Cleef, and he's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, I'm not doing that. And then she's out of it completely.
So that whole scene where he's in the house with her, Lee Van Cleef, and the bad guys are shooting at him, and he hits like he taps one of the panes of glass and smashes it so he can shoot. Did that not remind you of Top Secret?
A little bit.
Yeah, it was like waiting for the tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, I don't know who's not like ripping off, but who's paying homage to whom.
Right. Well, this was before that, so.
Yeah, there's always, whenever there's like a classic thing, there's always somebody that's gonna be like, oh, this looks really cool. I'm gonna do that, and then they do it, and like, oh, what is that from? Like off air, we were talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife paying a lot of homage to the original films,
right?
Especially to the late Harold Ramis's character Egon Spengler. Yeah. There's a lot of callbacks and homages to him. So,
oh my God. So Neves Navarro. I thought she was still pretty hot here. She did look a little long in the tooth in this one. But then you got Gerard Herter, who played Baron von Schulzenberg as Gerard Herter. He's a German actor, although his accent kept changing in this movie. I felt like there were times where he was British and times where he was German.
There was a lot of ADR done on this film because the speech did not match up with the lip movement. It was very reminiscent of dubbed, Japanese films.
Yes, yeah. Well, it was funny because I think fans listening to this would be interested to know that he was on a famous MST3K episode that was called Secret Agent Wah, Wah, Super Dragon. And he was in the classic horror film Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster, which, if you haven't seen that, that's a fucking fun film.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I may have to send that one to you too. But that was really good. But I liked him with the monocle. It reminded me of the Monopoly Man. You know?
Yes, Uncle Pennybags.
Yes. I keep thinking of what's his name? Oh my God, Jim Carrey.
Oh, Fire Marshal Bill?
No, Pet Detective.
Oh, Ace Ventura.
Yes. Where he's like, "Here, I'm the Monopoly Man." But yeah, that's what I kept thinking of. And of course, we had Maria Granada, who played Rosita Sanchez. She wasn't in this a ton, but she was in a bunch of Euro spy films like Operation Atlantis, which is actually a fun film if anyone can get their hands on it. And she was also in Salima's, the director Salima. She was in his film, Requiem for a Secret Agent.
Oh, interesting.
Cool, yeah. We had Robert Camardile, who played the Sheriff Jellicoe. We're going to see him again in future films. He was in For a Few Dollars More and Django Django Kill If You Live, Shoot. He was also in Mr. Super Invisible with the inimitable Dean Jones.
I just want to throw something out
Sure.
real fast. Nieves Navarro
Yes.
is still alive. She's 83.
Oh, wow.
Just turned 83 in November. I know we're like, oh, she looked a little long in the tooth in this movie. She was 28.
Really?
She was 28. She was born 1938.
Wow.
28 in 1966, so they must have made her up to look older.
Okay.
There's no way that she was, because she was in A Pistol for Ringo,
right,
which was a year before.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so,
and I don't mean she looked old, but yeah, okay, that makes sense.
They had to like age her up and
Right.
make her look like she was a widow, like someone who had been married for a while. Like maybe she was supposed to be like in her 40s, which at that point was like, you might as well be dead, you know, like, you know, but yeah, so she
well, I'll put in an inquiry and see if we can get her on the show. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be.
That'd be so cool. Oh my God! So I don't want to go on about too much of the actors because 90% of them are in westerns that we're probably going to cover at some point. But the last one I did want to mention was Angel Di Pozzo, who played Chet Miller in this movie. He was in a ton of westerns, spaghetti westerns. We're going to see him again, definitely. He was in a bunch of horror films, too, including Horror Express with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, one of my favorites, and Assignment Terror with Paul Naschy. So
I don't think I've seen those.
Oh, you haven't seen Horror Express? I mean, Assignment Terror I can forgive, but Horror Express you have to see. That was, oh my God, that's one I've seen as a kid. But I love this movie. You know what I loved is like just opening with the animated intro. I thought that was really cool. With the Morricone theme.
I'll have to check it out.
You haven't seen the intro to this movie that we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the other ones before that.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
I'm definitely going to check those out. Like, sorry, I'm trying to like look at my notes and stuff and where I left off. I lost track of what was going on.
Oh, that's all right. You know what? And in fact, I skipped over someone. We can't end the discussion without mentioning the great Fernando Sancho, who appears here as Captain Segura of the Mexican police. Who
is playing a sort of good guy?
Right, I was going to say that.
I mean, sort of like, oh, where you like, oh, this rich Texans down here, and all these guys are like causing trouble all over the town. Well, you should go where I'm going. Where are you going? To sleep, because sleeping man doesn't see or hear anything. And if I don't see or hear anything, I can't react to it.
I love that. I love that he's a lawman, but he's still slimy. And we last saw him in Requiem for a Gringo. And so Pat, I'm pretty sure I texted you. I was watching a blaxploitation film on Tubi called Voodoo Black Exorcist, and I think I texted you and said, "Oh my God, Fernando Sancho showed up as a police detective."
Yeah, it was kind of wacky. But hey, he's a good actor. Like, he's good at what he does. Like, it was just nice seeing him as, a sleazy, clearly corrupt cop.
Right.
But like his whole thing was like, I don't care what you like. I hate his people. I hate your people. And whatever you guys do to each other is just A-okay with me. So fuck it, like, do whatever you want. But I'm really lazy and corrupt, so don't cause any problems for me.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when we get to his, because you can see how lazy and corrupt this dude actually is and how much he really doesn't want to do his job at all.
Yeah.
We'll get there in a couple minutes, because it's like, how do you not notice this?
Right.
So yeah, go ahead. You're on a roll.
All right. Well, so when we open the film, Lee Van Cleef is talking to Brexter or Brockton, whatever the guy's name is, and he pulls out the poster of himself. Did you not think that was a wanted poster for like a split second?
Oh, I thought it was a wanted poster.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I saw it, like, that's got to be a wanted poster.
Exactly. But it turns out he's running for Senate.
Yeah. It's like, I need you to get this here bad guy for me. There's a mint julep in it for you if you do it quickly.
Right. And then the McCoy brothers show up. Stereotypical red-haired Irish guys, but they don't have Irish accents. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, what, do you want them to have the matching accents? Like, the German guy was British half the time. Like, they couldn't find anybody Irish to do the ADR.
But the best quote was when, well, why should we send a 30-man posse when we got one man who can do the job? And that like sets up, for me, that sets up the whole movie. It's like, yes, Lee Van Cleef, you don't need a 30-man posse. You've got Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some convenient shit that happened. Like, Lee Van Cleef has played off this entire film like, oh, this guy is so smart. Like, nobody can get the drop on him whatsoever. And like 5 minutes in, Cuchillo's like, oh no, you got bit by a snake. Oh, you better undo my my things, like, and give me a gun, or no, give me a knife so I can suck the poison out of you. Quick, give me a knife. And it's like, hey, you better not try anything there, sonny. It's like, yes, let me stick this scalding hot metal to your back and then take your gun. It's like, you're so dumb.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Like, totally out of character.
Well, and I mean, prior to that, Lee Van Cleef thought he had him when the guy was getting a shave. And then he escaped and he hid behind the horse, which I thought was kind of cool, because he knew he wouldn't shoot the horse. But it wasn't Cuchillo. But Lee Van Cleef stops and says, yeah, I'll take a shave. Which I thought was great. I'm like, he's so good. He's going to stop and get a shave and then go after the guy. And then he catches him, but it turns out it wasn't him.
Ah, I got you. Oh, it's not you.
Right.
I mean, we'll be getting to that, because like, it seems like he knew, like, Cuchillo was, again, a lot smarter than he let on. So like, a lot of the time you're like, there's definitely something else going on here.
Yeah.
Like, and then we get to see more of the stuff with Broxton and his new son-in-law, he's fucking dumb. Like, he sucks. But like, we're also led to believe that, like, and here's a nice racial double standard that we have to open up the film, because it's like, we have Cuchillo in the water and like calling to the young girl, who is what, 12 or 13, and it's like, oh yeah, why don't you come into the water and play with me?
That was creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, super creepy. And it's like, oh, he's totally gonna try and like have his way with this girl, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just the white guy's wife. No big deal then. Oh, she's your fourth wife. Oh, carry on. But we don't want any brown people like, messing with the young white girls. But it's you. You're a religious man. You couldn't possibly do anything wrong. Carry on, sir.
I'm gonna say I didn't get that at all. Like when Lee Van Cleef said he was saving his daughter, and he goes, "Oh, my daughter? No, that's my fourth wife." I was shocked. I did not. I mean, yeah, all right, Mormons again.
Right.
I should have known.
Shocked, but did any?
I didn't
know it in the movie was like that.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, that's his daughter. And then when he said it, I was like, oh. But either way, it was still creepy when he was in the water saying, come in.
Yeah. Oh, no. It was absolutely like, that was weird and creepy, and I didn't like it. But they were just like, oh, that's your wife. Oh, all right. Carry on. Yeah. Like, he doesn't have an issue with that, but like, I get that he thinks he's chasing down a rapist. Like, don't think I'm just glossing over that fact.
Oh, no.
Like, no, I'm just, for anybody who might be listening, thinking like, oh, but, it's like, yes, and you're definitely led to think that this dude is a weird, creepy dude who is, about to do the same thing he's already been accused of doing.
Right.
But I think that's the brilliance of this film is like, you're led to believe but that's how Westerns are. This guy is going after the bad guy. Like, this is kind of like a unicorn in the fact that the bad guy and the good guy, like, who you're rooting for him for the wrong reasons. Like, there's always a double cross, but you never think it is, because it's usually like the bad guy and the good guy have to team up for something in the middle of the film, and one of them betrays the other. Right. But, like, in this situation, it's like Corbett, who's, you're led to believe is like this infallible, like, bounty hunter. The whole time he's getting played for a chump. Yeah,
that's true. And then, of course, he chases Cuchillo to Cuchillo to the widow's house, where she takes him and then treats him like shit. But then she ends up going from Queen Bee to pathetic. Where Lee Van Cleef pretty much kills everybody on the land, and he's taken off, and she's like, don't leave me. She was so pathetic.
Yeah, it was one of those things, again, like, much like we talked about in the last film, like, that entire thing was just an excuse to throw Nieves Navarro in the movie. Like, otherwise, take that whole sequence out. Does it affect the film in one way or the other?
Right. Like the poison thing with the last film that we saw.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, the whole thing, like, it's just to pad the runtime. And again, this movie is 2 hours long. So when you have, like, this whole thing, like, there's no need for it. Like, we already, he has that Cuchillo talks to him later, and he's like, oh, I helped you get out of that situation that I put you in. Like, I could have killed you, but I helped you escape. And you didn't need that to show that Cuchillo wasn't a bad guy. Like, when he stabbed him with the cactus needle and made him think that the snake bit him,
right,
in order to get the upper hand, he doesn't kill him. Like, that right there, like, I have everything I need to kill you right now. I have the upper hand. I have your guns. Like, I'm going to leave you here by yourself. I'm taking your horse. I'm taking your guns. I'm taking your water. Good luck. I could kill you right now, but I'm going to leave you here so you at least have a chance.
Right.
You've just eaten. You've just had some water. You know where there's water nearby. So good luck chasing me. Right. I'm out of here. But I could have killed you right now. And that's all you needed to show his honorability.
Right, exactly. And that was a little more than Lee Van Cleef did to Giuliano Gemma in Day of Anger when he took his horse.
Right.
You know, and, oh man, and they get to the monastery, and I thought that was great where Brother Smith and Wesson, who calls... Now, all right, so here's something I noticed that they didn't... I think it was a mistake in the film. He calls Lee Van Cleef by name. He calls him Corbett. And I don't recall Lee Van Cleef introducing himself in that scene. So I thought, for a split second, I thought he was going to catch Cuchillo because Cuchillo named him. But
either that or, like, you know, he's well known. Like, Corbett's well known.
I suppose, yeah.
Except at the beginning of the movie where, like, nobody knows, like, those guys didn't know what he looked like.
Right.
Like, Corbett's chasing us, see? I don't know why they're, like, Brooklyn gangsters from the 30s.
Right,
like,
right, yeah,
see? Yeah. I'd know that mug anywhere. And, like, he's standing right there, and he's like, oh, we don't look kindly on outlaws. Take a look at that guy swinging from the tree. Ask him. The whole time we thought you were behind us, you were in front of us. Darn it.
Swinging from a tree, that must be Terrence Hill.
Yeah. Oh, he has both his shoes on.
Oh.
But yeah, it was like they made him seem like he was superhuman, but then like he got duped, and like
several times
he was as single-minded as the Terminator. So when he catches up with them in Mexico, like they're in the same jail cell, and he starts beating the shit out of them. And then he's like, if you don't let me out, I'll scream repeatedly. So they put him in the next cell, which is fucking dumb. Like,
right.
If these cops are as crooked and as ruthless as they expect, it's like, all right, well, he'll just kill you, and then I'll have peace and quiet. They put him in the next cell, and he proceeds to pull a knife out of the ceiling, and like,
oh yeah, I did that here when I was here last.
Yeah, they didn't search me, so I just left it here because I knew I'd be back. And then, like, he just, like, chips away and, like, leaves. And then the other guy comes down and is like, all right, we're going to let you out. And super out of character. Not only, you know, again, talk about how lazy Sancho's character, Fernando Sancho's character is. I'm looking at the list, and it says Romano Pupo right above him. So I'm like, Sancho. Putting the two names together. He goes, like, they ignore the fact that there's a knife sitting on a stool in the middle of a now empty cell with a giant hole in the wall.
Right.
Like, somehow they don't notice that. And Lee Van Cleef, who has been spent every single second of this movie to the point where he nearly dies, knocks a dude out and steals his horse, has been chasing him, just like, yeah, he's right outside. I'm being let out 10 seconds after he escapes. He's got like a 30-second head start. Yeah, I don't need to chase him.
What? True.
What? Why you've been single-minded, like, again, to the point of...
Because that's how good he is.
Yeah. The point of near death, you are pursuing this man. And then he's right there. He's 10 seconds ahead of you. Like, you were willing to try and take his knife and escape the way he did to chase after him. This is actually much quicker. And they're giving you all your shit back. And you're just like, yeah, kind of sleepy. Grab some food, grab a nap. I'll look again in the morning.
You know, well, all right. So, to your point, when I saw that scene, I felt like it was the same thing as the shaving scene. He's like, yeah, I'll take a shave first, and then I'll go get him. Like, he's that confident in his skills that he'll catch him.
Like, and that's the thing, is like, he's right there. I want to get him. I want to bring him and, like, extradite him. But it's like, well, I got time to, you know, build a sugar skull, because apparently because I had time to, you know, build a sugar skull, get a shave, take a nap, you know, shopping.
And, you know, that's one thing I love about Lee Van Cleef is he's not afraid to throw a kick in a fight.
Yeah, that's always different. Like, anytime you see a cowboy kicking something that's not like his spurs against a horse.
Oh, man. He did that quite a bit. And then, of course, Broxton shows up at the end, and he wants Cuchillo dead. And it was that point when he wanted Cuchillo dead that well, I thought, I'm going to say for myself, I thought, oh, he's the one, Broxton's the one that killed the girl, and killed the 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, the old Lady Macbeth, I think the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah. Yeah, but then it was his son-in-law. When you found out it was the son-in-law, didn't he have those, like, freaky, pervy, creepy eyes? Like, every time they showed him, I'm like, oh, man, he's a fucking pervert. He's the one that did it.
Weird, yeah.
Because we didn't really see him at the beginning.
They didn't, I think they purposely didn't show him.
Yeah.
Specifically for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, the poor actor, I don't want to disparage the poor guy, but, he had these pervy eyes. Like, when you looked at him, you're like, oh, he's the one. He totally fucking raped and killed that 12-year-old,
Yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. That's what he is.
But there was a nice nod to the Most Dangerous Game. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I want to hunt man. It's like... Really? Like, that's like you're just throwing that out there. I've been on every continent. It's like, I bet you didn't know I was a hunter and knew about bullets. It's like, bullets were more common than currency back in the day. Like, that's what everything was. Like, everything, like that's how they would, like, if they had TVs, that's how they'd turn their TV on, by shooting it. Like, come on. Like, oh, that candle needs to be blown out. Well, I've got my pistol handy. Bang. Oh, I shot the candle. Like that's everything they did involves their guns and duels and, oh, we had a disagreement. Should we fight about it? No, let's just shoot each other. Like, that's all that's why it's called the Wild West, because that's all it was everybody shooting everybody else.
Right. Although it's funny that now that you mention it, and I kind of forgot about this in the last one, when we talked about the last film, the Shaw Brothers film, where the chick pulls out the half candle, or not even it, like it was like a quarter candle, and puts it on the other thing. I remember going, why is she doing that? And of course, the bad guy comes in and he's like, oh, don't light the unlighted candle. That's a trick. Light the lighted candle over there. And of course, that killed the brother and sister there.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely not a trick with this one.
Right.
Like, maybe don't light any of the candles, or if you do, like, figure something out.
But one thing I wanted to say about this movie that we're talking about, that the battle at the end was great. I thought it was overall, very satisfying. Although afterwards, I kept expecting Lee Van Cleef to apologize to Cuchillo, but he didn't. But there was a moment where he started to, and Cuchillo was like, "Don't say anything. I understand." And I thought that was great.
I mean, I get it, because you can't make Lee Van Cleef look like he's weak.
Right.
But it's like, hey, sorry I put you through all that bullshit. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, everything that he put Cuchillo through, like, I mean, Cuchillo got laid, everything worked out for him. Like, like, he didn't have to cross the desert by foot.
That's a good point. But, and he didn't have to do it. Like, I was expecting him to say it. And he was about to, and Cuchillo just was like, no, I understand. You don't have to. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, because it's like, you were just doing, you're just a dumb American. You didn't know any better.
Right. But that whole fucking end fight was just so good. I mean, there were so many good elements to that. Again, in a comparison to the Shaw Brothers films, it was the ending that you needed for this film.
Yeah, I liked the fact that they just, I mean, they were still riding off into the sunset, so, but riding off onto over the dunes. But I like how they're like, well, I'm going this way, and then they both go in the exact same direction. It's like, It's like, all right, just one more dune. No, you said that 3 dunes ago.
No, but even before that, with the fight, and then the bad guy ends up getting shot, although he's like so far away. I'm trying to remember now what his name is. I can't remember.
Oh, Broxton?
Yes.
Yeah, Broxton. He's like, aha, I'm up on this hill. You can't get me with your pistol. And then
See?
Cuchillo's like, you want the rifle? Absolutely. And then he shoots him with the rifle. Because he's just, and again, Lee Van Cleef, this is the cliche thing nowadays is the guy not looking back at the explosion that happens behind him.
Yes.
Lee Van Cleef just standing there as like this guy shooting at him and like the bullets striking all over the place.
Yeah. It was so good though. It was just one of those one of those moments where you were just happy to get that moment,
Yeah, I think so. But I thought this was good. Like I liked this. This wasn't Lee Van Cleef's typical role because he's generally like just again like Bronson, the unstoppable badass.
Yeah. Yeah. So final thoughts on the Big Gundown.
I hate the name. I hate the title. Stupid. But I really enjoyed the film. I thought Cuchillo was very well played by Tomas Milian. I thought he was the best character in the entire thing, even though he was annoying and crude. But like, that's what he was supposed to be. Like, you weren't supposed to realize like how good he was. The tonal opposite of Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this movie. I had seen this before, but I didn't remember it. I think a lot of these films we're going to encounter that I have seen, but I didn't remember. I love Lee Van Cleef. I think you're right. Thomas Milian was the tonal opposite of Lee Van Cleef, but I think that was on purpose. I think he was supposed to be, not well. I guess he was the good guy, but he was sort of the anti-good guy because you didn't know he was the good guy at the beginning. But it was just fun to see Lee Van Cleef in a good guy role rather than a bad guy or an anti-hero, which we've seen. I thought this movie was engaging from beginning to end. And, yeah, we saw a lot of spaghetti western tropes in this movie that we're used to seeing, but I didn't care. I loved it. I did feel that I thought from the beginning, I was kind of worried about Cuchillo. I thought he was the bad guy first, and then I thought he was innocent, but then there was a moment where I wasn't sure. So that's one thing I love about this movie is it kept me guessing. I wasn't really sure if Cuchillo was the good guy or the bad guy. It was pretty clear that Lee Van Cleef was the good guy, and the others, you only saw them at the beginning and then at the end. So between all that, it was wondering whether or not Cuchillo was good, but they threw a lot of clues out that made you realize, yeah, maybe he's not the bad guy. Maybe he didn't kill that kid.
The thing that I was thinking as I go through, and I'm remembering how I was watching this was maybe they were like, oh yeah, it's this guy, it's Cuchillo, and it's like it wasn't him, it was a different guy, but all the white people are super racist in this time, and it's like, oh, the Mexican did it or the Indian did it, and like it's like any Mexican will do, like, oh well, we saw this guy do it, and it's like, it wasn't him, like the guy that what's his name, Lee Van Cleef runs down and kills. It's like, well, he shouldn't have run away, and I wouldn't have shot him. Like, he should have just explained what happened. It's like,
he looks like him, but
it's like, oh, yeah, like he looks like him. It's like, no, he doesn't look like him. It's like, oh, he's wearing a brown shirt. It's like,
right.
Oh,
and that's when he took the shave, and he was like, oh yeah, I don't have to waste time. I'll get him.
Right. He was like, yeah, this is no problem.
So would you say, on that level, this film was sort of ahead of its time in terms of, making it seem like the Mexican was the bad guy, but it turned out he wasn't?
Yeah, like, in pretty much every Western, you know who the bad guy is. Like, it's abundantly clear. It's overtly obvious. Like, you're being beat over the head with, I'm the bad guy. Look at my black hat and black shirt and black pants and black horse and my sinister looking spurs. And, everything is black. And, he kills people indiscriminately. But like in this, it's, I know the term gets overused today, but subverting your expectations.
Right. I agree 100%. And I think we're going to find that a lot more in these spaghetti westerns. That maybe not so much with the Shaw Brothers films, but we're going to find out that the people we think are the bad guys, or they try to set up as the bad guys, are maybe not the bad guys in these films. So, folks, that is all the time we have for The East Meets the West today. So, you can check out more episodes, as well as our sister show, I can't speak today, Then Is Now podcast, in which we discuss all the cool stuff that you may have missed out on. You can visit us at our website, havenpodcast.com, and please be sure to click on our Patreon and TeePublic links for some exclusive content.
And folks, don't forget The East Meets the West is also part of the Dorkening Podcast Network, so don't forget to check out all the great shows there. There's about 40, and it's always growing at thedorkeningpodcastnetwork.com. You can find me at throwdownthursdaypodcast.com. Throwdown Thursday every Thursday with my wife Ash's Von Nightmare, as we give you all the characters you love and love to hate. You can find us on our Facebook group, as well as the Loudest Sports Show, where we haven't been doing a whole lot on that, but we do continue to post updates and whatnot. And you can find me here on occasion with Rigor, talking about spaghetti westerns and Shaw Brothers Kung Fu films.
And please send us your thoughts on today's episode to The East Meets the West 42 at gmail.com. You can check out our website at havenpodcasts.com, where you can find our sister show, Then Is Now, where we discuss all the cool stuff you may have missed out on and stuff that you should know. And don't forget to check out our East Meets the West YouTube page at youtube.com/user/UncleDeath1, and you'll find all our podcasts plus other fun stuff there. And be sure not only to hit the subscribe button, but hit that little bell so that you can get warned or notified. Not warned.
Warned is the right word.
All right, warned when we put out all kinds of cool stuff. And tell your friends and get them to subscribe as well.
And please go to wherever you download your podcast and leave us a great review so more people can find the show.
That's right, folks. And join us again on our next I cannot talk today. And join us again on our next episode of The East Meets the West.
Is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. All clips played on the show are property of their copyright holders. All other material is copyright Jupiter Media.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.